Bill to repeal the National Identity Management Act 2017 and establish a national identity database for the maintenance of national database passes second reading in the House of Representatives. Sultanate Council dispelled concerns over a rift between the Sultan of Sokoto and the governor of the state, Ahmed Aliyu, following initial issue over stripping the monarch of his powers. Hello and welcome to Politics Today, reaching you live from our global headquarters here in the nation's commercial nerve center, Lagos. I'm Jeffrey Uzanga. If your state or your region or your area is one of those people that has been agitating for the creation of a state, it's a good time to be on the show because there are bills that has been passing first reading in the House of Representatives following some of the agitation in some parts of the country, calling for more states to be created amongst the states that we already have. 36 states and the FCT is what we have according to the Constitution. But there is a move to alter the Constitution to create more states. So different groups, different areas, different regions are calling for a creation of states. So we're going to have that conversation today with one of the persons in the House of Representatives has also moved a motion to that effect. We'll bring you all of that detail later on the show after we bring you a political roundup story. But first, let's tell you that the Sultan of Sokoto, Mohammed Sahad Abubakar III, has confirmed that everything is okay between him and the governor of the state, Ahmed Aliyu. The representative of the Sultanate Council, Mohammed Jabi Kilgore, revealed this in a public hearing today at the State House of Assembly. The public hearing, which was chaired by the chairman of the Committee for Local Government and Community Development, Ibrahim Saidu, had several stakeholders in attendance. Now, the bill, which had generated controversy nationwide, has speculation that the state government allegedly planning to dethrone the Sultan of Sokoto is said to be a bill just to amend the local government laws of 2019. So it's a cheering news to hear because this development over, you remember that the issue of the emir is still an issue under adjudication. And so this story broke about the altercation or disagreement, but they are saying nothing to worry about. So we just leave it at that. Let's move on now to tell you that the Cross River State Governor, Mr. Basio, too, has actually commended President Bola Tinubu for approving the commencement of work from the Calabar axis of the ongoing Lagos-Calabar Coastal Highway, emphasizing that the commitment of the president in infrastructural development is going to positively impact on the benefiting communities. The governor noted that the president's resilience, despite the difficulties on all fronts. He talked about the approval of the Calabar, Ebonyi, Benue, Kogi, Nasarawa, Abuja Superhighway being undertaken by the Renewed Hope administration. He says it was laudable. Governor too equally notes that Section 3A of the Lagos-Calabar Coastal Highway, which traverses 11 communities in Cross River State, will greatly improve the connectivity as well as the accessibility of the region, thereby boosting economic activities of citizens and enhancing effective service delivery. So those are some of the comments of the governor of Cross River State. Let's head to the National Assembly, where a bill for an act to repeal the National Identity Management Commission Act 2007 to provide for the establishment of a national identity database, and the National Identity Management Commission is charged with the responsibility for maintenance of the national database, the registration of individuals, and the issuance of identity credentials has passed second reading in the House. The bill read for the first time on June the 5th and sponsored by Deputy Senate President Senator Barau Jibrin today seeks to enhance the efficiency as well as the inclusivity of identity management system through comprehensive provisions that is designed to improve and update the extant provisions in line with the global best practices. In the lead debate, the proposed legislation is termed as crucial for the socioeconomic and political development of the country, as well as the national security and effective identity management system. The objective, according to them, also includes streamlining the sharing of personal data, incorporating robust data protection measures to safeguard the privacy and confidentiality of individuals, personal data and foster trust among citizens in the handling of their information, among others. So you can understand where this is also coming from, given the fact that there was an issue about the sale of people's data to third party, and that had generated a lot of concern. So let's see how that plays out. Eventually, when it passes third reading, we'll get to see a piece of that legislation. But those are not the only stories we're tracking for you. Let's now bring you our political round of stories before we bring you our very first conversation.
The House of Representatives has condemned last week's suicide attack in Borno State, which claimed over 30 lives. This decision followed a motion by Honorable Ahmed Jaha, highlighting the ongoing terrorism threat. He reported that over 180 people were critically injured and are receiving treatment. The House also resolved to investigate alleged mismanagement of agricultural funds, including over 1.12 trillion naira from the CBN and 3 billion naira from the Bank of Industry. The President of the Senate, Senator Godswill Akpabio, is appealing to Nigerians to support President Bola Tinubu's administration towards transforming the nation for the better. He was speaking during the flag-off of construction of a bus and taxi terminal in Kubo area of the nation's capital, which he says aligns with the vision of the present administration to promote infrastructural development in the country.
A well-organized public transportation system is the backbone of any thriving metropolis. With these terminals, we are laying solid foundation for sustainable urban development.
The Imo State Governor and Chairman, Crude Oil Theft and Management Committee, Senator Hope Uzodinma, has disclosed that the Imo State government had entered into a renewed partnership with the management of Sterling Global Oil Company regarding the company oil exploration and operations in Imo State. Speaking to journalists after a closed-door meeting with the management of Sterling Global Oil Company at the government house in Owerri, the state's capital, the governor says the oil company which was engaged shortchanged the state, and the federal government now agreed to follow laid-down procedures.
If the data is of good integrity and the total production reported, and by extension, add also the state's 30% derivation revenue as a result of the increase in production.
Meanwhile, the Imo State House of Assembly has suspended 4 lawmakers indefinitely for allegedly plotting to impeach the Speaker, Chike Olumbe. Speaking during the plenary session in Owerri, the Speaker alleged that the 4 lawmakers have brought disrepute and ridicule to the House by their actions at various fora by inciting other members against the leadership of the House. The suspended lawmakers include Samuel Otuibe, representing Ahieze Mbise, Henry Agbasono of Ezihite Mbise, Chidebere Ogumninkpa from Okigwe, and Dominic Eziora, representing Oru West State constituencies. The Labour Party has kicked against the sentencing of the Enugu House of Assembly candidate Brett Nenge. Addressing the news conference in Abuja, the Deputy National Chairman of the party, Mr. Ayo Olorunfemi, explains that the party's candidate was sentenced without the adoption of written addresses from his lawyers, even without an option of fine. The party accuses the Enugu state government and the state's judiciary arm for initiating Mr. Ngene's imprisonment for insisting to reclaim his March 18, 2023 House of Assembly election mandate. While petitions has been written to the National Judicial Council, the party urges NJC to investigate the judge and initiate a disciplinary action against anyone found breaching the ethics of the legal profession.
We are not going to sit down and watch this type of thing happen as a political party. And Nigerians should note that this caliber of people should not be allowed.
Now, before we get to that conversation, a bill seeking the creation of a TT state in the Southeast geopolitical zone was read for the first time on the floor of the House of Representatives during plenary today. The bill, sponsored by 5 members of the House, comprising Amobi Oga, Miriam Onoha, Kama Nekama, Chinwe Nabuife, and Anayo Onwegbu, seeks the proposed state to be created out of Abia, Anambra, Ebonyi, Enugu, and Imo states. When created, a TT state, not Ekiti, a TT, will have 11 local government areas drawn from 5 states, with the capital to be located in Lakmanta. The bill is seeking to alter 3 sections of Section 3 of the 1990 Constitution to delete the word 36 and replace it with 37 to accommodate the new state and to insert the word ATT immediately after Enugu in the list of states contained in the 1999 Constitution as amendment. Now, we also understand that the issue of Olu State is also in the front burner. The issue of Anioma State is also in the front burner. So there is a couple of state agitation across board as far as this is concerned. This is why we're having this conversation. We've been joined on the program by a member of the House of Representatives who is part of the sponsor of that bill, Honorable Amobi Ogai, joins us from our Abuja studio. Honorable, thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you, my brother. How are you?
Well, at some point, we're going to be joined by a legal practitioner who is going to be making a case for the Anioma state. But we're having this conversation, Honorable, based just not about the ATT state. We're looking at it holistically about this call for a new state creation across board. So why the need for a new state, not necessarily ATT in this instance?
Okay, you know very well that the Southeast have been marginalized in the area of state creation. Other zones have 6 states, except Southeast. And the birth of ATT state, the other way around, was called equity. But we cannot call it equity because it's an Igbo state. So we believe we must go by a name that is Igbo name. That is why we call it ATT. ATT means to balance. ATT means is justice, is equity. ATT stands for the peace and harmony of Nigeria. Because Igbo people have always believed that we are being marginalized. How can other regions, geopolitical regions, have 6 states and we are having 5? And this ATT state, why is accepted by all? Because every part of southeastern state is part of the ATT state. If you come to Abia State, we have 2 local governments that form my own constituency. I represent Iskwato and Umunnochi Federal Constituency. Iskwato and Umunnochi is in that ATT. You come to Ebonyi State, we have Ivo local government and Ohoza local government, which Kama and Kemkama represents. You go to Anambra State, we have Orumba North, Orumba South, which Princess Chinwe represents. You come to Imo State, we have Okigwe and Onimo, represented by our sister Miriam Onoha. To Enugu State, we have our brother Anayo Onwebu, who is representing Ojiri Vanieri and Ogu. These constituencies are these constituencies that come together. And this is also part of the agreement of 2014 confab led by our elder statesman, General Ike Nwachukwu. So this is an agreement by the Igbo nation that we need one more state to be able to balance, for us to believe that we are in one Nigeria.
All right,
because the only thing that have been created, yeah.
My apologies, so that for the record, so people who missed out, is the name of the state going to be ATT?
Yes, ATT state.
Is this different from Olu?
ATT state.
Is it different from Olu state?
Of course. Olu state is not even in consideration at all.
But we understand that has also passed, hold on, we understand that has also passed first reading. Is that true?
Yes.
So why you say it's not under consideration? Because I know Ikengo Gochinyere, I've had conversation with him, yeah. I think it's from Idiato North, Idiato South. So why can't the region, because you're calling, what you're agitating for is equity. There's Northwest has 7.
Yes.
Every other region has 6. Only Southwest has, Southeast rather has 5. So you're making a case for an additional state for just equity. We're going to come back to some of the substance of the conversation. So why do we have this divided argument, ATT, Olu, and maybe any other one?
No, I don't think there is a divided argument there. You know, this is politics. People have their own views. People can do things the way they feel most times. People can be faster than their shadows sometimes. But we as Igbo nation, our fathers have agreed on something. And they agreed on this Etiti state on 2014 confab. Because that is why then it was called equity. Equity means, it's not the name of the state, equity, but what they mean by that equity is that we agreed. Okay. And is a justice state, is a state that will be for equity and justice.
All right, I'm going to come back to you on some of this issue. Let's get in another set of agitation, this time from the Anioma Nation in Delta State. We've been joined in the program by Mr. Elsita Ogana. He's a legal practitioner. Mr. Ogana, thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you for inviting me.
And so your region is like the Igbo-speaking region of Delta State, when you consider Urhobo, Shekiri, and others, and the Jos. Yours is the Igbo-speaking area. So in getting this, in agitating for this state, why are you agitating for this state on one hand? Two, is this state going to be part of the South-South or Southeast?
For the question, first and foremost, the agitation for Anioma state creation didn't start in this decade. It didn't start in the last decade either. It started in the 1950s and was led by, God bless his soul, the Ojiba of Ahaba, Chief Dennis of Sarebe. So it's not a quest that started today. And the request for the state is very popular in our north and south, Oshimiri north and south, Ikan northeast, Ikan south, Ukwani, Ndokwa east and west, and of course Oshimiri south and Oshimiri, excuse me, and Oshimiri. So our people are simply saying that we want a state of our own. Don't forget that we were formerly in the old Western region. Through a plebiscite, which went on to a referendum, we were democratically created, we went to Bendel State. From Bendel State, there was state creation. Anioma had always been there, but for one reason or the other, which I don't want to go into, in order not to ruffle nerves, Delta State was created with Asaba as the capital. But that quest is still alive. That quest is genuine, is germane, is relevant. And Anioma State does not need federal allocation to survive. We have the bulk of gas reserves in Anioma State. When you talk about human resources, you cannot go further than Anioma. We have professionals in Nigeria and the diaspora, and we are ready to pursue our claims legitimately. So that's one leg of your question. The second leg of your question is whether it should be in the South-South and in the Southeast. As of today, 2nd July 2024, we all know that the finances of Nigeria are not what they used to be. We'll have loved for every state to have, every zone rather, there are 6 zones in Nigeria, for every zone to have 7 states each, like the Northwest. But that will be expensive. The logistics, the bureaucracy will be too expensive to run on the budget of Nigeria today. So what we are saying is, other states in other zones, apart from Northwest that has 7, the South-South has already 6 states, the Southwest, the same thing, the South-South, the same thing. So we're now saying that the Anioma state creation, that have been part of the Igbo State Union, that have been part of the Ohanese movement, should be part of the Southeast, because that is the only state that needs to be created now.
All right.
Given our power economy is from the Southeast. That's what we're
Mr. Ogana, so I want you gentlemen to see the picture you're painting. So it's a bit a lot. So there's a Titi, they call for a Titi state. I know the Idiato representatives called for Olu state. And now Anioma, which has to go to the southeast, according to you. For the records, you say you have gas reserve. You don't need to depend on federal allocation. Well, gas reserve, according to our law, is still under the government, the federal government, that will now extract all of that. So you need amendment of the Constitution. So let me come back to you, Mr. Oga. One of the things that one will have to consider, possibly to begin to agitate for a state, is economic viability. Have you looked at all the variables to be able to make a case why, beyond the issue of equity, what about sustainability? I'll give you an example. From the data of 2022, the fiscal performance of all the states in Nigeria, I keep citing that because that is the document we can rely on. Most states in Nigeria are not viable. Experts are even saying 25 to almost 30 states. If they were companies, they will fold. So the question of calling for more states is a divided opinion on one hand. Let me give you an example. Bayelsa State has oil. Bayelsa State is endowed with a lot of body of water. But Bayelsa State is highly dependent on fact to the tune, as at 2022, of over 90%. That's an oil-producing state. So having resources may not necessarily be a guarantee. So when you're making your argument, what are the variables you're looking at if they ask you, how would you sustain these states?
Okay, thank you, my brother. You see, when you are talking about viability of states, I don't know whether if you look very well, you will find out that the states are not doing what they're supposed to do or gaining what they are supposed to gain in terms of IGR. It's not because they cannot do that. It's because they have this attitude of depending on federal government. You see, there is no state that is not viable. The only thing is that when you overfeed your child, you make that child lazy. The constitution we're operating today and the system of government we're operating today, the federal government have made the states very lazy. Imagine even the third tier of our government is nowhere to be found. And this, which is part of the insecurity we are facing today. But let us not go that side. See, we are in a country that have 6 geopolitical zones. And first of all, before we talk about viability, let's talk about equity. Let's talk about justice. All the problems we are facing in this country today is one of the major reasons is when people feel that they are not part of the system. The Igbo nation have feel that they are not part of the system because of the way certain things have been done.
Mr. Oga, Honorable Oga, just a minute, if I may butt in, sir. My question is simple and direct.
Okay.
Equity is a non-debate. Equity. My question is viability. That's my question.
Mm-hmm. That is what I'm telling you. There is no state that is not viable. If you want every state to function without the federal government allocation, you will make the state to work by moving some of the things to regions or states to do certain things. Like I said earlier, they may not be viable, some of those states you are calling, because of the structure of the system, depending on federal allocation. When you move certain things to states to be able to handle by themselves, there is no reason they will not generate and sustain themselves.
All right,
So
let me go to
viability.
My apologies, Mr.
It's not the
Oga.
question here now.
My apologies. Let me, so that we can take everybody's opinion. Let me go to Mr. Ogana on this one. Mr. Ogana, I don't know whether this sounds to you like an indirect call for restructuring. I don't know why it sounds to you, but some states can't pay minimum wage as we speak. Some governors have even said the 60,000 or 62,000 the government is proposing, the federal government can't work. Let me give you a picture of our macroeconomic situation. So when this government came in, they inherited a couple of things. Subsidies for fuel, they had to remove. The reason is maybe our bill was almost 5 trillion. They were subsidizing electricity about 2 trillion. Subsidizing FX about another 3 trillion. Debt service, another 7 trillion. When you look at all the wage bill, about 7 trillion. That's beside recurrent expenditure. Now we have over 100 trillion naira in terms of our debt burden. And our debt to GDP ratio has crossed 50%. We're choking as a country. Do we need additional burden? If you were presented with what I just did now, how do you make a case for a new state?
It's easy. The agitation in Igbo land, when I say Igbo land, I mean the entire Southeast, I mean Rivers, I mean Delta. That's where you have Igbos. The agitation there is because government has not done yet what it ought to do. If we remember, after the Civil War, General Gowon came up with the mantra of reconciliation, rehabilitation, and reconstruction. But can you say that that has really been done in Igbo land? Every zone in Nigeria has 6 or 7 states. How come it is only the Southeast, the zones dominated predominantly by Igbos, that is still 5 states? That is the question. That's one. 2, we all know the headquarters of entrepreneurship in Nigeria. Igbo land, the Igbo blood in Anioma people will ensure that we don't even need government allocation to survive. Take a drive round from Asaba down. What do you see to the left and to the right? Go to Neri, you see industries. You see self-help. You see the Igbo man's quest to actualize himself. You see the Igbo man's quest not to be a beggar. We have the same blood in Anioma land. If you rewind back to the history of the first military coup in Nigeria, led by Nzogu and Ifajuna, both of Okpanam and of Onitsha, Igbo land, exactly. Why is it that some parts of Nigeria have still chosen not to forgive us? Despite the fact that the war has been fought and has been won. You can see the contributions of Igbo. Is it banking? Is it law? Is it entrepreneurship? It's there. So we are not fighting anybody. We are merely pleading that you should treat Anioma the way we have treated other parts of Nigeria. Give us our state, to speak my language. I state in Yoku. I don't know. I ain't here. Let me interpret that. We are not fighting. We are not issuing threats. We are only appealing. We are embedded in saying, treat Anioma, treat Igbos like you have treated other nationalities from other parts of Nigeria and from other zones. No more siphoning.
All right, Mr. Honorable Oga, let me come to you. So, if I may ask you, what have you, this agitation now, collectively, what have you been denied as a collective, besides the issue of equity, that you think that when this state is created, it will help you actualize that thing that has been, you've been denied? I mean, for those who are agitating for states.
Thank you. I think this is the best question you have asked me for today.
I've asked you good, I've been asking you good questions.
Yeah, but this is the best for me.
Okay, no problem.
It's the best because you are asking a question of justice and equity. Igbos have been denied so many things. See, you see, life is all about, if you have 2 kids and you begin to treat the other one better than the other, naturally, the other child will start feeling somehow. Igbos are feeling as if they are not part of this country. See, not because we are talking about creating of a new state. My brother from the other side is talking about Anioma. See, it cannot only be when there is time to talk about this kind of thing, they will agree they are Igbo people. What we are talking about as of today is geopolitical zone. There is nothing like Anioma. Anioma is in the south as of today. We are talking about southeast. Now, if we are talking about southeast, any state you're talking about should come from the southeast. It's no issue of talking about Anioma. If we are talking about, oh, Igbos are going on their own, because there are Igbos in rivers. Part of Ikwere is Igbos. So if Igbos are in Asaba, in a Delta state, no, there's not issue. But what we are talking about is issue of region. Now, for now, Anioma, the Asaba and Anioma is in south-south. So let them shift a little. Let us talk about southeast, the zone that we are talking about. Let us balance the southeast. Let us feel. We cannot be talking about viability. You are taking what is from our own side to go and take care of the other people. And you're talking about viability. Give us what is due for us. When we get it, then we talk about viability. For now, we are not talking about viability. We are talking about equality. equalize the zones. Let them be equal. Let us feel that, yes, we are part of Nigeria, that what other people are getting, that we can get it. Because even, look at, you are talking about Bayelsa. How about Ekiti? If you look at the confab resolution, out of this 11 local government we are talking about, we are going to get almost 18 to 20 local government in that new Ekiti state. So let nobody come and distract us in the name of we are Igbos in Delta State, we are Igbos in River State. It's not what we are talking about. Give the Southeast what is due for them. Balance Southeast at least 666. So we are not even talking about 7. So when we now talk about 7 to get to other people, then we cannot call our brothers who are in Anioma if they are ready. Because during presidential elections, they will now be South-South. During after election, they will now be Igbos. Let us be sincere in this country.
All right, Mr. Oga.
Okay.
Mr. Oga, just my apologies. Let me go to Mr. Ogana. Mr. Ogana, it appears your brother is denying you. Maybe you have to respond.
Can you let me respond to it, please?
Yes, that's what I want you to do. Respond.
The Igbo nation is now at a crossroad. The Ohanese agenda is being questioned. I'll tell you why and how. If Ohanese consists of Anambra, Abia, Ebonyi, Enugu, and Imo, Rivers and Delta, those are the 7 states that attend the Ohanese meeting. I should know because I was one spokesman of Ohanese, Ndibo, me. The President General then was Mr. Gary Gariwe of Ebonyi State. The regime that handed over to him is that of late Ralph Witre from Ogwashuku. God bless his soul. Oguluzema Ogwashuku. He was president of Ohanese. They handed over to the regime of Igariwe, where I served as spokesman of the Igbo nation. The record is there. Is it now because benefits are coming that I'm no more Igbo, that Ogwashuku is no more Igbo, Asaba is no more Igbo, Onitshubo where I come from is no more Igbo, Agbo is no more Igbo? Look, at the last elections, the vice presidential candidate of PDP, Senator Dr. Ifeanyi Chukwu, Otto Okowa, admitted that he is an Igbo man. His Obi of Owa, admitted that he's an Igbo man. The late Asaba that died, Asaba of Asaba, Dr. Chike Dozie, God bless his soul, hosted meetings of Ohanese. Obi of Owa, Obi and Ijubo, these were not there, they are alive. All went. We were at the same car, have a caucus meeting at Asaba, cross over to Nigeria and go have a meeting. So we in Anioma as Igbo as they come. Igbo land recognizes for market days. Unko, Eke,
okay.
Olie, and in Anioma land, it's the same thing.
All right, Mr. Ghana, I must button now. I understand. My apologies. We're totally out of time. So let me just take the Honorable's take just this particular last question. So, Honorable, apparently it looks like the issue of additional state is a major concern for the Southeast region. The Southeast region has also been trying to produce a president for a while, since its administration. I think the highest have gotten is the Senate president in 1999 that had like a plethora of them, about 4 of them, leading the Senate in that particular order. So the question for me is, if this is actualized, will it reduce or will it eradicate the call for Biafra?
My brother, let me tell you the simple and the best truth of the day. If Nigerian government gives us one state to balance with other region and releasing Nnamdi Kanu for Igbo people, my brother, nobody will talk about Biafra. See, like I explained to you before, these things are when you have like 2 or 3 kids, and one is feeling that is not taken care of like the other, naturally, that child will not feel happy. What the burning fire in our hearts is that we are feeling that we are not recognized like others. Right. This is a region that think about Nigeria. There is no part of this country that you go that you don't see Igbo man driving the economy, trying to make sure that Nigeria works as a nation. But whenever it comes to sharing, now question like viability will come. Even the viability you're talking about, go to any state that is doing well. It's Igbo nation, Igbo people that are making those states viable.
That will generate.
Yeah,
we understand the industry of the Igbo people, but you also understand other people work hard as well, because I can understand where you're coming from. But we're totally out of time.
They can't compare like Igbo people. They can't compare like us.
That argument, I'm not going to join in, but I'm just saying everybody works as a collective to build the country.
Igbos, you see, if you want to know that Igbos can make things happen, turn this government to regional government and see what Southeast region
I must butt in at this point. Honorable Amobi Oga, member of the House of Representatives, as well as Mr. Osita Ogana, a legal practitioner, joined us on the agitation for both, on one hand, Anioma, a TT state, and there's Olu on the other hand. But I wish you gentlemen and the entire region and the agitators the very best. Thank you for coming on the program.
Thank you for having me. I wish you gave me more time to press the Anioma agenda.
Thank you, my brother.
Thank you so much. Well, we will go on a quick break. When we come back, there's a build-up to the election in September and November. INEC has conducted retreats for resident electoral commissioners. And, of course, they are getting set for that particular off-cycle elections that are taking place in both Edo and Ondo. That's the conversation. We're joined by a member of the civil society organization to have that conversation. Join us again.
It is new, it is unique and of international standard. Maduka University. Maduka University, a modern university of international standard with modern facilities for learning, committed to training entrepreneurs across different fields of human endeavor, offers admission to students in different courses such as law, accounting, medical lab science,
cyber security, mechatronics,
mass communication, nursing, pharmacy, ICT, computer engineering, civil engineering, JUBE program, and a lot more. Maduka University is located in an environment of serenity, safety, and security at Ekwebe, Nsukka, Enugu State. For more inquiry, visit our website, madukauniversity.edu.ng, or call 0805-509-1802 or 0915-789-3107. Maduka University, the place for the transformation you seek.
The Duchess International Hospital caters to every aspect of the family's health needs. A one-stop shop for maternity and child health services, emergency medicine and critical care, medical and surgical subspecialties, dental and eye care, and a range of other subspecialties and services, all available at a single location right here in the heart of Ikeja. And it really doesn't matter if you're paying out of pocket using your HMO or private insurance. We focus completely on providing that world-class affordable healthcare for all the family at all times.
All of us like to chop better food. Food where they make body tranga and vegetables wey fresh like say tomorrow not day. We want make the chocolate sweet the way we go like am. No cubes. Now be the secret. Them make am with correct ingredients like chicken, parsley, garlic, plenty iron corn full and palm to make your chocolate palm bar for you. Come the sweet well. Now be the cocoa. Make we carry salute, throw away give no.
Change your world by changing waiting day your plate. Who's your guy? See how sweet they like beans and rice. I will never leave your side. I will never ever. I dedicate my time forever. Time to you, my people. Even if the road be rough, I know mine. Cause together we shall stand.
My people, make Make we all come out on election day and vote Olumide Osaigbavo Akpata, Una guy, as governor of Edo State. He ready to change our story and bring better life for we and our Pikin them. Vote Labour Party, the party for Papa, Mama and Pikin. Make we vote well, oh, Oludi, confirm. Now you be our guy. Labour Party, forward ever. Olumide Akpata.
September and November, yes, in that order. In September, we'll be having the elections in Edo State. And of course, in November, we'll be having the elections right there in Ondo State. So that's the conversation we're having, the level of preparations. And one of the people that have been watching that space, a civil society organization, will be joined in the program by the Director of Programs of Hiaga Africa, Cynthia Mbamalu. She joins us from our Abuja studio. Cynthia, good to see you again. Thank you for coming on the program.
Thank you. Good to see you too.
Well, let's begin by what civil society is seeing as, let's begin with that concern about level playing field. So if you've been following the news, you realize that both the Labour Party and the APC at some point were concerned about level playing field, where they were complaining, especially Labour Party, that some of their billboards were vandalized and all of that. I wonder what the take of civil society organization is on this and what you see play out in that state. I'm talking about Edo State for now.
Well, I'm glad you raised that. I think it's important. First, I mean, one major principle when it comes to elections is that the process is free and is fair. And the idea of fairness is that every candidate, every party, every contender has an equal opportunity to campaign. I mean, the process, that's one of the factors to look out for. And unfortunately, part of what we're beginning to see is one, there's this increasing political tension in Edo. I was in Edo last week, and just interacting with stakeholders and citizens within the state, you can feel that undertone of political tension within the state. There are two variants to this. There is the intra-party conflict that has also heated up the polity, and then there's the inter-party conflict. But then the question around the freedom and fairness of the process, I think, is an issue that needs to be addressed, because for every electoral process, and one of the things that ensures the credibility and integrity of the process, that every party and candidate is given a fair chance to contest and canvass for vote. And while you're driving through the streets of Benin, you can see the posters of at least the APC, the PDP, the Labour Party. However, one of the things we were observing were in some locations, you see the posters of the other parties either torn or destroyed. And sadly, this is not an incident peculiar to just Edo elections. And I think this is a bigger call to political parties and how they view the electoral process, as whether they see it as a democratic process or as a militarized process. And what we've seen in Edo, if you follow the last obstacle elections in Ekiti, Osun, and Anambra, in fact, in Anambra, at least Anambra had the APGA as the ruling party at the state. There were also complaints. And so one of the major lessons is that political parties must understand that when it comes to the elections, they need to ensure a fair and free process for other contenders, regardless of who is a ruling party. Because today, there may be complaints from Edo, because you have the PDP as a ruling party. But if you go to another state where you have the All Progressives Congress as a leading party, you would also get the same complaint. And I'm hoping that for these elections, that INEC engages the political parties to, one, sound out the rules of the game. The Electoral Act is clear. Every party has the freedom to campaign within these 150 days required for campaign before the elections. And that state government should not use the instruments of the state to intimidate or limit or restrict the campaigns of the other parties. We have 17 parties, candidates and parties in this election in Edo State, and each of these parties has the freedom to contest and campaign across the 18 local governments in the state. And I think it's important, the ruling party in Edo State, and even as we also look to Ondo, that each of these parties understand that using the instruments of the state's power to intimidate others is an infringement of their fundamental rights to be voted for in an election.
Cynthia, I'm wondering who is going to call the states to order, as you've rightly posited. When is a particular, if it's APC, there's complaint about APC. If it's PDP, there's complaint about PDP. INEC itself looks to be like there's no capacity to effect some of these restraints on the political parties as much as possible, because they themselves even need help to be able to carry out their own duty. So my question is, who is going to call them to order and insist besides INEC?
Well, if we're being honest, by law, INEC is the umpire. And what the umpire does is to ensure, like the referees, to say, oh, you're wrong, you're right, and get this done. This is the rule, which is why INEC releases a code of conduct for campaigns. INEC releases the policies that regulates the campaigns to support the elections, the Electoral Act and the Constitution. And so one of the things that is expected is there are fines in the Electoral Act for specific offenses, especially as it relates to even intimidation and vandalization during campaigns. And it is by law, the Electoral Commission is actually the umpire that needs to sit up to call the parties to order. I know INEC has platforms in which it engages with the political parties. However, there is also the conversation around, because I wouldn't want to call on the federal government or anyone to do that, because I need to stick to what the law says. And in a sane climb, where you have individuals who respect the rule of law, we shouldn't even be having this conversation. But unfortunately, our politics is not necessarily a sane climb. And so it also behoves on the government, the incumbent, the ruling party, to understand that intimidating or restricting the other political parties in this state also is an indication that the party does not care about the Constitution and it's not democratic, because also no matter how you conduct yourself, if you're not democratic in your conduct, then it also means that you don't believe in democracy. And so at this point, INEC has that responsibility to call to order, but you also have the security agencies who have the power to make arrests. Because when you see vandalization and disruption of processes, where campaigns are held and their campaigns are disrupted, that means there is a crime, there's an offense. It also behoves on the security agencies to also make arrests, because when you begin to make arrests, it deters those kinds of conduct and reduces impunity in the system. So INEC has its role, but you have the security agencies that ought to also play their role in bringing peace and order in the state.
I would like to have your view on what you see playing out. It appears to be, there are about 16 or so political parties in this race. But this may end up being a three-horse race, because we're seeing impressions from the Labour Party through Olumide Akpata, Asue Godala of the PDP, who is of the ruling party, and Monday Okwebolo of the APC and all of that. So in your analytics of what is going to play out in terms of the voting bloc, do you think that this election will be different from the one we saw the last time? Because from the data we have, we saw that maybe about 10% of the entire population, if you take it, those will be about 5 million people both in diaspora, and about only 500,000 people voted. In terms of voter apathy, do you see that playing out this time? Or given how intense the race looks, people will actually come out to vote?
Sadly, we already seeing projection of low voter turnout. And if you look at the data from the last elections, and for the presidential elections, Edo barely had about 24% turnout. The 2022 governorship elections was about 25% voter turnout. So we've seen, and that was a decline from the 35% they had in the previous elections before the 2020 governorship elections. And in the states, already there is that I wouldn't necessarily call it apathy. I would call it more like disinterest. So there are three factors for me. One, there's a growing disinterest amongst the voting population when it comes to engaging on the process. And it is directly correlated with the fact that there is that lack of faith in government to deliver the goods and services that meets the needs of the people. So when people do not trust that their elections would produce an outcome that gives them good leadership, then they do not have that interest to participate. The second part is a question around the lack of faith or dwindling lack of trust in the electoral process. If you remember the last presidential elections last year, Edo was one of the states that experienced incidents where voting processes were disrupted and elections materials destroyed in some polling stations. That has left some impact on the voters' faith in the process. And also, post that elections, there were lots of questions around some results in some of the locations in Edo State. So that level of lack of trust is also affecting how citizens are engaging in the process. And I think the third part is the economic crunch. Now, we already know the economic realities. You meet the average person in the state. They are not thinking of elections. They're thinking of how to get the next meal on the table. And so there is going to be that direct impact of the economic crisis on how voters engage and even how voters turn out. And I think I forgot to mention part, which is insecurity. Because in Edo State already, one of the findings we were receiving activities of cultists in different locations, kidnapping, locations like Esan East, Esan West, Esan Southwest, Igweben. We're getting more reports of cultism, and some of them are already indirectly impacting on the process because while you may call it cultist activities in a sense, we already know that there is a political undertone to some of the rising cases of that. And then the insecurity that has affected even how farmers farm in some of the farming community. And we also have header farmer clashes in some communities. So this security context also has a direct impact on the process. And if you ask me what will be the projection, I'm worried that Edo would not even get 30% turnout in these coming elections. But there's still a lot of work that needs to be done.
It's quite unfortunate because when I look at the number, how just about slightly about 10% of an entire population decided who governs them for the next 4 years or more. Before I let you go, the issue of the integrity of the umpire itself, I want you to speak to that. Isn't that also a concern for the voters in Edo State? Now, look at what played out in Adamawa State with Yunus Ahari, whose case is still under adjudication. We saw clearly what played out. I remember I was on DC that day, and we saw everything that played out, and people felt that by now that case should have been done and dusted. It's still a subject of adjudication. To the best of my knowledge, I stand to be corrected. So, at the end of the day, how confident do you think the people are in the electoral umpire themselves? In about 1 minute, if you can.
I think to respond to that, I would just put the responsibility on the Electoral Commission. INEC has a lot of work to do to rebuild trust in itself as an institution and in the electoral process. And what INEC requires to do this time around is to begin direct engagement with citizens across the local government and showcasing what it needs to do in the elections. That's one. The second, we want to see the electoral officials conduct themselves with high sense of integrity and devoid of any form of partisanship. Because one of the questions around INEC's integrity is the question around partisan characters from some of the officials, and the fact that the last elections, issues that were raised were not addressed. So for me, what INEC needs to do now is to invest in building confidence in itself as an institution by ensuring adequate and timely communication and engagement with voters. Voter education must be priority in these elections if INEC wants to even ensure that it conducts an election in an environment of trust.
Just in closing, this particular one of the issue of accountability given to the issue of rhetorics. We're about to see rhetorics play out very soon when these campaigns start. A civil society organization on your part, are you curating these things? And is INEC doing enough to make sure that there's civility in the rhetorics of, politicians? Because at the end of the day, they'll just say it's just a means to an end. After the election, I've heard people say, let that not define us. But people were killed. People were maimed.
Honestly, to address this too, because I believe in holding people accountable for their actions. That is where the security agencies come up. The laws are there. It empowers arrest. It empowers penalties for for those who heat up the context or who even use rhetorics of hate and destructive and violent rhetoric. So there is that part, the need for arrest. But I wouldn't necessarily put the blame on INEC now. Honestly, it's a call to our political parties. I believe that our political parties and politicians most times are oblivious. Either they are oblivious or they are just mischievous. I mean, heating up the polity, knowing that that would leave a lasting impact on how citizens even interact post-elections. These elections is a call to political parties to conduct themselves with some level of civility and responsibility.
Right.
One. The second is parties should devoid from arming thugs, because when they arm thugs, post-elections, they never retrieve these arms, which is one of the things that spill over into the level of insecurity that we see. You see these kidnappers, a lot of them some of these are arms that were amassed during elections. And I think it's also time we begin to hold our political parties accountable for how they heat up the system and create insecurity in the process.
Cynthia, thank you so much. I think a day will come when we talk about thuggery, arming thugs and being in cahoots, those thugs being in cahoots with politicians, because it's a never-ending conversation. It seems not to be getting better, but we hope it's going to get better. Cynthia Mbamalu is the Director of Programs of YAGA. Thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you.
All right, that's it on the program. Thank you so much for your time and company. I'm Jeffrey Uzoma. God bless the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Good night.
Wow, look at that. Until recently, I had no idea what a pangolin was. But this thing is strong. It's a small mammal covered with scales made of keratin, just like our nails. Strong scales, man. The scales has no medicinal value, yet the demand for the scales and the meat is driving the pangolins to extinction.